Should I use a thicker oil to stop engine oil leaks? People are asking this all the time. Is it okay to use a heavier viscosity or higher viscosity, more viscous oil in their vehicles? Well, that's a really good question. And in the past, many people have did this when they had a really bad leak, or they have an old worn out engine, low oil pressure, so forth. And yes, to some degree in the past, even from my experience with older vehicles, I personally didn't necessarily have a problem, except with a few things when doing this to some of my vehicles. But there are some things that it does change and affect. Today, that's a little bit different. So let me tell you why. Today's engines use things like variable valve timing. They have small screens on the solenoids and so forth. The passages and clearances are much tighter. You're really playing with fire when you do it to these engines. The engine's performance is actually affected greatly by oil pressure. That's the way it's set up with the tight clearances. So you really don't want to go around messing with that, because you could destroy your engine. You might actually starve components of oil, believe it or not, doing this, because it's not going to be able to reach critical parts in a fast enough time when you're going to a much higher viscosity. I seen someone that was supposed to be using 5W30 using a 15W40. Now, when you got a problem that bad, I'm not sure if oil is actually going to make much of a difference. But there are a few other things that are happening when you're using that higher viscosity engine oil that's not made for your vehicle. For example, it could increase the oil pressure, but there's a couple problems that go along with that. If you increase the oil pressure, you've actually done something else. You've changed the oil flow. So the oil, or just like water, would have a flow rate, and how much oil that flows within that period of time has actually been changed. Less oil is flowing in that period of time. The oil might be moving along faster, but that's not necessarily better. And what's happening is you're creating this high pressure, and if you'll watch a pressure gauge, an oil pressure gauge, when you do this, vehicles first started up, it's cold. Now this is when it's really dangerous. It's actually going to cause leaks to typically get worse, not better, because like I said, you're increasing the pressure, changing the oil's characteristics by changing such pressures. And now, after you change that pressure, guess what? The oil's actually going to damage the seals because such high pressure. I mean, this pressure is going to skyrocket when the vehicle is cold. And that's, like I said, if you're not starving the bearings and crankshaft, camshafts of oil in certain areas that it's hard for the oil to reach because it's not made for it. Because I experienced an issue in the past, even with an older vehicle. I seen the pressure go through the roof practically. I mean, it practically doubled when I used that higher viscosity oil. But after a while, the engine warmed up, so it was literally cut back in half. So it dropped all the way back down once I used this engine oil. So really, it didn't even help. And as a matter of fact, not only did it not help, but it actually done probably more damage than it did good. What's your experience? Have you ever used a different viscosity engine oil than your manufacturer's recommended? If so, tell us about the vehicle, the make, the model. We want to know, was this back in the day? Is this, today for newer vehicles? What's your experience been? This really could go a long way to help someone that might be in a tight spot. I really appreciate you guys being kind, sharing your information, taking time out of your day to help people in the NIA community. I know you guys have helped me a lot. As always, I want to thank you for watching Nate's Interactive Auto.